Hey kids, my name is Guby, and today we're gonna learn about film theory. Do you know about film theory? My favorite part of film theory is the...
Help me! Please, somebody help me! Help me! Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that wants to know your favorite color. My favorite color is... the subscribe button. If there's one thing that I have been most excited about coming in as the host of Film Theory, it's the opportunity to really dive into the work of independent creators. Don't get me wrong, big budget content is great, but I found that, especially in horror, it's the independent creators who are able to craft the most memorable scares, because they can dive into what truly terrifies them instead of what a boardroom thinks will spook the ideal number of people, but not too much because we want them to come back for a sequel. That independence, that level of creativity and mystery and horror is what we're going to find today in GÜBY. The heck is GÜBY, I hear you ask? Well, other than a word that is really fun to say, GÜBY is an analog horror channel that you're gonna find right here on YouTube.com. But rather than getting its spoofs from evil animatronics like the Walton Files, or creepy found footage like the Backrooms, or body horror like the Man in the Suit, GÜBY is more like a parody of classic call-and-response children's entertainment like Dora the Explorer or Blue's Clues.
This is number 1. Then, this is number 2. It comes after 1.
But hey, YouTube, it's not too much like those series. As the channel description tells you repeatedly, GÜBY is not made for kids. This is one of those series that was recommended to us by the good folks over on the Film Theory subreddit, and I have to say, you guys nailed it. Matt and I have been covering it over on GT Live, and it's some of the most fun that we've ever had overthinking things.
I saw some lore. Abby.
Last seen in her home, January 3rd, 2004? Watching something in her pajamas. Her parents,
Jamie and Albert Lang.
Told no one.
Someone in the living room.
Nah, I can't read the rest.
Yeah, right. Oh.
No, honestly, we really overthought it. By the time we got to our 5th cipher puzzle, I knew this was something that I just had to cover here on the channel. And after diving into it, there is so much more to GÜBY going on than the happy-go-lucky surface would have you believe. You see, underneath this facade of a smiling yellow noodle friend is a dark secret. An evil being literally worming its way into reality through the television and punishing any children that refuse to play along. Pick your favorite animal, loyal theorists. It's time to solve this mystery. So, first things first. GÜBY is one of those series that is very dense. Covering each and every puzzle would take a very long time, so what we're gonna do instead is hit the broad strokes and then dive into the main mysteries of the story. Cool? Cool. Let's start by going over what's actually in the GÜBY videos. Each of these covers a topic that you'd expect to see in a kindergarten classroom. Think letters, numbers, the color of blood, that sort of thing. Now, you may not have noticed, but there is something very strange going on here. Yeah, the more you watch, the more you realize that something's not quite right with GÜBY. Sometimes GÜBY takes drastic personality shifts, asking for personal information.
Do you want to see my favorite number? It's on one of these.
Can you read those numbers on the front to me?
And other times, GÜBY lets his darker interests come through.
Do you want to see my favorite animal? It's one of these.
And then sometimes, at random intervals, glitches will overtake the video.
Today, we're gonna learn about sound.
You get the idea. Now, we don't need to sit here and go through every single video explaining exactly what happens. Please, go show some love to GÜBY and watch through the videos yourself. But I do want to talk about what's buried in these videos. See, in classic analog horror fashion, during some of these glitches, there will be pictures or information hidden in just a single frame of the video. And let me tell you, GÜBY loves to use this trick. In Learn Numbers, there's some Morse code hidden in one of the glitches that's difficult to read, but likely translates to evolving. In Learn Shapes, we see various incarnations of GÜBY across different mediums. A realistic GÜBY, a puppet GÜBY, an old school cutout style GÜBY, and in Learn Colors, the whole video ends with an extended glitchy clip of an entirely different video.
Here you are.
But most prominently throughout multiple videos, we see bits and pieces of missing persons posters for children, all aged between 3 and 14. And And yeah, just from a straightforward content perspective, that's Guby. So what the heck is actually going on here? Well, let's start out with the obvious bit. Guby here, he's clearly the reason that these kids are going missing. The first big piece of this puzzle is that the kids in these posters all seem to have gone missing while they were watching TV or in their living rooms. And we know that they were watching Guby because in Learn the Alphabet, we see that a victim's sister left the room to find their grandmother's credit card. Remember the clip we showed earlier?
Do you want to see my favorite number? It's on one of these.
Bring it over here.
What's more, during many of these glitches, we can see multiple images of different children sitting in living rooms looking directly at the camera, almost as if the camera were actually a television. These are the kids that went missing, and we're seeing them from the point of view of the television, from the point of view of Guby. So somehow, Guby is kidnapping these kids through the TV, and we can even figure out how Guby is doing it too. Over on GT Live, we wondered if the kids answering Guby's questions were sort of giving him permission to come into the real world and take them. But after rewatching the series, that's not actually what happens. In Learn Animals, Guby has this exchange with the viewer that we can hear.
I love animals. Do you?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
The kid answers Guby's question and everything is great. But elsewhere in the video, the child interrupts Guby, and Guby does not take it well.
My favorite shape is...
My favorite shape is a circle.
Guby freaks out, and notice that subtitle? It might look like nonsense, but it's actually jumbled up letters that when put in the right order read, "Only speak when spoken to." He's telling the child exactly how to play along, to get the answers he wants in the way he wants, when he wants. Also, notice that Guby straight up disappears here. This has to be when he's coming out of the TV to get the kids and drag them into his world. And just so we're all on the same page, this isn't the only time this happens.
And this is
A pig.
Again, those jumbled up captions read, "Listen to what I tell you, pig." Guby is then interrupted for a third and final time at the climax of the video.
You want to see my favorite animal? It's one of these. It's called a...
You're not animals.
Once again, Guby goes wild, and the video just cuts to black. Oh, and also worth noting that the subtitles tell us that all animals have teeth, which is just factually inaccurate. I thought this was an educational program. So Guby seems to be taking these kids that he sees as not doing what they are told, speaking when they're not being spoken to, and dragging them into the TV. But what becomes of them then? Well, they become a part of Guby, still aware and still somewhat conscious. During many of the glitches across the whole series, sometimes sequences of numbers will flash on screen. Adept theorists will recognize these as some sort of cipher, and after some trial and error, I was able to figure out that they were actually tap codes, which we've covered before over on our sister location game theory. So go check that out if you want a really in-depth explanation. If I'm being frank, most of these aren't super important to the overall mystery. They're more so used to emphasize the creep factor. Like here, where they spell out, he is not who he says he is. Spoopy, to be sure, but nothing new. However, there is another tap code hidden in a later video that reads, "Where are we?" asked Sophia. "We are in a beautiful meadow," whispered Michaela. "This is not a meadow," responded Sophia. Michaela and Sophia were two of the kids from the missing persons posters, and as we see here, they can still see. They can even talk to each other, and some of them even think that something is wrong. And also, we know that this meadow that Michaela is seeing isn't some sort of weird purgatory TV space, because some of the kids try to communicate with the outside world through Guby. Like here in Learn the Alphabet, where there's a moment where one of the kids seems to speak out of the TV.
My favorite words are...
Help me. Please help me.
That's not Guby. That's a little girl speaking. Likely Michaela, since that's the missing person poster we see shortly after this. In fact, we hear multiple voices come out of Guby. Remember the deep male voice we heard back in Learn Numbers? And in Learn Sounds, we hear Guby's favorite sound, and that sounds a lot like kids screaming.
Do you want to hear my favorite sound?
Plus, the name of the channel isn't just Guby, it's Guby and Friends. The friends are clearly the people that he's absorbed. And after all of that evidence, if you're still doubting this, well, this should put a pretty little bow on the point. During one of the glitches, a random quote appears. This one isn't encrypted in a cipher or jumbled in a subtitle. It just reads, "To us as a burning bush, and said we could kill the hurricane bird." If that made no sense to you, fair. It also made no sense to me, but after some digging, I found that it's actually a quote pulled from the short story titled I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison, which, hear this, involves a character being merged into an artificial intelligence and tortured forever. Yeah, I know. This was actually one of the main inspirations for the Amazing Digital Circus, and it sounds a lot like what's happening here with Guby. Just some food for thought, y'all. So that answers what Guby is and how he's doing it, but why? Why is he kidnapping all of these kids and sucking them into his TV purgatory? Well, for us to solve that part of the mystery, we're going to have to really dig deep and solve the biggest puzzle in the series so far. In the video Learn with Guby, we quickly see that something is off. This is the first video with no subject and no Guby. Instead, there's just static. But if you look down at the captions, you will see something.
All right.
Oh my god.
So if you're like me, your mind is first going to jump to the thought that this is some sort of cipher hidden in the closed captions. But notice that some of the letters in these captions are different colors than the rest of the text. That's actually impossible to do on YouTube captions. Yeah, these are physically burned into the video, but just look like YouTube captions. Honestly, this was an amazing way to play with my expectations, and I loved it. Anyway, if we go through and collect all of the differently colored letters, you find that it makes a blank YouTube URL. And as soon as the fake captions stop, other letters and numbers start flashing up on screen, spelling out this. Now, your first thought may be that this is the rest of the YouTube URL, but it's actually too long to work. If you try to go to the video with this code, it just breaks. But here's the cool thing, and shoutouts to Rubex3. next week.